Podcast. I'm Scott. This is Eric. We are on episode 22 this week.
We're sponsored by Rockstar. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
And we're sponsored by Backlash Podcast. Wait, we are a Backlash Podcast.
We sponsor us.
We got some stickers made up. They look pretty cool. So
can't see it if you're listening to the audio though.
Yeah. So check us out on YouTube.
Or Facebook. I'll post a picture when we're done recording.
Good
so
idea.
you'll already have seen it if you follow us on Facebook.
And if you don't, follow us on Facebook.
So, and you know what? We've never said, give us a review on iTunes.
Yeah, sure. Why not? We've been doing this for 20 episodes now. So
22 episodes.
And the sun went down, so if you're watching, it just got really ominous and dark.
Another thing I want to say is, speaking of sponsors, is the Gen Con events are this weekend. And it's all sponsored by Tony Vela Cards. He's been posting all the prizing on his social media this week, and there's some really cool stuff. The custom belts, all the autographs he's been getting on cards and by the photographs. I saw this morning is a nice Shinsuke Nakamura. I think it's an 11 by 18. It's cool. It's a lot of stuff. I think it's his last year, so. Yeah,
I really like the title belts. Like, it's kind of what we did for our store championships last year. Where it's like, this card is considered to be champ is here. You can't pack champ is here, but it's called like Gen Con 2018 champion. Yeah. So like you always have that.
But I like it where the belt's a little different. Like it's aligned differently, and then the background on it's way better.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I can't Photoshop
and
like that.
Foil.
It's foil, yes.
So they look nice. Yeah, I really like them. So yeah, if you follow him on social media, he's been posting them every few days, posting a few. So it's pretty cool. What else has been going on around the web this week? Drywall was sharing some funny stories about Baron.
Is this on Discord?
This was on Discord, yeah. The funniest one I was reading was about right to censor and how apparently WWE wanted them to be made or something, but they were afraid they wouldn't sell because everyone hated them so much. And Baron's like, well, I'll just make their ability really good and then everyone will have to buy them. I was like, oh. Yeah, I guess when you pull the strings back then, you could do that. And they were quite a power force for...
Yeah, I heard some stuff with Baron was a big like Magic player, so these for prize cards and everything. That's why we had the title belts and Divine and Radio Revolution as like promotional and prize cards. Well, it's like, well, you want it, you got to earn it, and the whole collectability part and the value of everything. Yeah,
there was a good discussion on Team Canada Online about whether they felt the prize kit, the way that it was handed out, where the winners got the best cards, was good for the game, or if it made it too competitive, or it drove prices up too high, or what. So.
No, it wasn't good for the game. Excuse me. You said yourself you spent, what was it, $50?
$50 on Vince GRA, yeah. Like the only card I've ever bought, really. But.
Where, like, I love the living card game method of things. So you have the new Versus system, you had Android Netrunner, Game of Thrones, all those living card games. Where it's alternate art cards. You gave one to the winner, one for fellowship, so like a random prize. I know you've had a lot of luck with random prizing over the years. And then they gave out like a play mat and deck boxes for like deck boxes for top 4, play mat for the winner. So it's like you're getting cool stuff that you could only get if you do well.
Yeah.
But you're not kind of segregating the
or getting an advantage in the game per se. Yeah,
where it's like
looks more blinged out, but
like I love the idea where it's like title belts for tournaments. Yeah, that's great, but it's like, oh, the United States title belt is like break stacks, not break stacks, but your opponent is like, oh, what was the comment made? Where the United States title belt, someone would won it a week or two before Gen Con, and he ended up winning Worlds only because he had the United States title belt. United States title belt. Well, it's like -1 pre-match. You draw one off Premier. You draw one for Premier SmackDown. Remember when Big Show guest ringside announcer was like a must-pack card?
Yeah, those are some memories for sure.
That was like what, $60, $80 card?
Yeah,
because it got rid of its showtime.
I never owned one until the virtual era. I finally got my hands on one, and I'm like, well, now it really doesn't do much.
No one's playing Showtime anymore because it's like there are better ways for me to go first, and I don't want you to see my hand.
Yeah.
My hand of 18.
Move on to our topic.
I got caught up in the notes here where it's like we didn't bring up the HLA card at all.
Oh yeah. Well, that never got made, so that was just something about we were joking about how HLA, Hot Lesbian Action, was supposed to be a card, but WWE didn't approve it, and then somehow they approved hitting the G spot, and you're like, okay.
Look, it's grapple.
Yeah, grapple. Reverse any grapple spot.
Reverse any grapple.
Yeah, so there were some, again, funny memories from back in the day. Check them out on Discord. I think it's a great community to have because it's that instant chat, quick basic question, or sharing deck ideas and new cards that people are coming across and new combos, and I think it really helps improve you as a player if you're on there. So. And
then last week, I saw one day it was like 4 players just signed up. So it was like a little play group found it. It's like,
yeah.
like that. So it's not just, like, because a lot of it was the Illinois play group and then scattered people, and then we kind of swooped in, and then you had a few guys from Singapore, but now it's like, there are a lot of names on there. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know who all these people are anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at the how many people are there. So there's 77 offline. 1, 2, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's like almost 100 people.
Yeah.
We're almost hitting 100 people on the Discord.
Woo!
Hopefully by the time this is out, we've hit 100 people on the Discord.
Maybe. Gen Con might bring another 3 or 4 people that aren't involved.
Yeah.
You never know.
Hopefully guys that are Gen Con, preach out the Discord. While you're at it, give Backlash Podcast a plug. So, you want to talk about the topic of the show?
Sure.
Last week we did backstage area, so the idea with this is to, hey, if you're new to virtual, or you're still not understanding things of virtual, or you're like, virtual, I don't need that in my life. Look at all those purple cards.
Yeah.
Well, this whole conversation going forward is just to ease you into virtual. It's not that bad, but I think today is the one where everyone says it's the bad
overwhelming.
one. Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about the Backlash deck, but I think we're just going to focus on pre-match because that's where the majority, I think, of the non-specific cards was in the pre-match and mid-match. So we're going to break it up, just do pre-match today. We'll see how far we get, 40 minutes at a time, because we've got about probably 20 what we figure are key cards or staple cards. Before we get into that, I see your notes down here. Just want to talk that there is a new phase, Allegiance phase, which means that's the first phase that starts the pre-match phase. It goes Allegiance, Venue, Feud, Stip, Manager. And with that Allegiance phase came an increase in the Backlash deck size to 12 and 12, and you play 6 and 6, so that's not really in the rules anywhere, so people coming into the game are like, oh, it's not 10 and 10 anymore? No, it's now up to 12 and 12, and you play 6 and 6. Technically, you play 6. You'll see when we're reviewing these cards, a lot of them play for free. You put them into play. They don't take up slots. So you can end up getting 12, sometimes 13 and 14 if you're packing hybrid match ones into play. So it is probably the longest phase of the game now, which is interesting because it sets the tone for the game. But as I was saying, we played a tournament a few weeks ago and one player was John Cena, and no games lasted 12 rounds with his 12 rounds card. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I've been in the last few decks, to get a little off this for a moment, I built AJ Styles a new Nexus, and they're deliberately very short on the pre-match phase. Mm-hmm. So I find that I found a few opponents at the underwhelming part of my pre-match became overwhelming. Because they're like, well, what do you do with your deck? You resolve one pre-match card and a backstage signing appearance. Yeah. So it's like, what the crap is going on here? But the decks are also good. So I mean, your virtual decks don't need to be very pre-match focused in order to be successful, depending on your superstar as well.
But again, there are cards that don't take up slots or that you put into play where there's really no reason not to play them if you have the room and space and don't want to.
So there are 96 non-superstar specific pre-match cards in the virtual. Huh. Backstage area was 43 non-specific. Huh. And mid-match cards, there are 36.
Yeah.
Non-specific.
So combined, there's close to 130.
Yeah.
Just over 130.
And you don't need them all. Don't go out and print everything. Some of these I don't think you'd ever have a use
Yeah,
for.
some I've never ran, and then some I have 6 copies of. So it's interesting.
And for reference, it's plug day.
Sure.
For reference, I'm using the SoCal Raw Deal Facebook page. They have images of every virtual card. You could go to albums. You could search by like pre-match, mid-match, backstage area, superstar card support. They're all albums there. But also they have albums for every superstar in virtual and all the cards with them. I actually use this sometimes rather than going through the documents from Team Canada Online. If I need a card or two, I'll actually go here and then slap it onto my page I'm going to print.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the cards they're pulled from the documents.
You know what, now that you mention it, that's probably what I'll do too. Because Keith shared his all his alternate art Revo stuff, and I figured out how to copy it into Word. He gave me the size to do it. It's like 8.89 centimeters or whatever. It like auto sizes the width, so it's like perfect. And if you're already printing a sheet, like it just slips it right in there. So
yeah, no, I actually use this a lot. It's a great reference, and especially all the updates.
Yeah, they do that right away.
So it's like I needed the new Shenanigans card, and I just pulled it from here just because I was in a rush. It was one of those. It's like okay, resize done.
Yeah.
SoCal Raw Deal, which you've played with the guys down there.
Yes, I have a few times. So it's good.
It's good.
Check them out.
Back to pre-match.
Yeah. The new Allegiance phase, there's probably 7 or 8 allegiances, but I think there's 4 that are popular. I'm lining them down for us to see, not for you guys to see.
If you're watching on YouTube,
we'll pop them up.
They will pop up here like a card right now. I don't know what card it'll be.
I think the most popular one is I'm always on the winning side, my side. It plays for free. You get a +1 hand size. +1 pre-match. I'm just going to pick it up. And +1 mid-match. At the end of the pre-match, you can put 1 card from your mix-up pile on the bottom. So that's usually what most people do, but it also has an additional ace that you can randomly remove 1 card in your ring-set pile from the game. That's the activated card effect. And then randomly discard 2 and search for a non-unique maneuver. So I've seen decks that have done this for pump kick. If they somehow want to get it in their hand and then their opponent plays something that gets it out of their hand, they can do this and still get a pump kick again. It basically prays for free and gives you +1 hand size. So and in a pinch searches for a maneuver. So if you're like I could use an allegiance or I could use a bigger hand size, that's usually a go-to card.
It's a great just pre-match filler. Where it's like, oh, I need another pre-match card. When in deck construction I don't have an allegiance. Well, this gives me +1 hand size and plays for free, so why not?
And you can't pack factions, GRAs, or ECW, WCW, or NWO cards, but that's not really a big drawback. Unless you're building a deck around those, then you're probably running one of those allegiances anyways. So,
I've had recent success with McMahonism, so you're aligned to the McMahons. Where the first time during each of your turns, if you would draw cards outside of your draw segment, you can look at that many cards from the top of your deck and choose to put any number of them on the bottom and then the rest back on the top. I was running Kevin Owens, where if the opponent reverses from hand, you get to draw a card, and then there's a pre-match card called From NXT to WWE. Whenever you would move cards from your ringside pile, or draw cards for your superstar ability. If you're an NXT superstar, you increase those by 1. So Kevin Owens would draw 2. I just look at the top 2.
And pick what you want.
It's great. And if you're one of the McMahons, except Stephanie, she's not on here. Makes sense though because of the enforcers she would get. You can use it during your draw segment instead.
Yeah, and it's great for abilities like Victoria and RTC, where they shuffle or put their hand on the bottom, draw a whole new hand. Drew McIntyre's another one. You can literally pick the good stuff, then bury the bad stuff, and bring it up. So,
and you have the NWO T-shirt. Your run-ins are -3. You get a play kind of easier playing on your NWO thematic cards. Another thing with these allegiances is they have cards associated with it, or there's a card pool that you can only play them if you have these allegiances in play.
That's right.
Which is really nice.
And NWO, we've seen kind of with FBI, they have some run-ins. Spike Dudley may try it. Again, it has a bunch of run-ins, so with no DQ match, you can make your run-ins -6, so that's pretty effective. Saturday night's main event, that's one that we've seen popular in Legends. Or WWF Superstars. Basically, it doesn't take up a slot. Your starting hand size is +1, just like the always on your side. And when you're a WWF Superstar and have lower fortitude, you can double your numbers in the classic maneuvers. So a little bit of a boost there. Oh, never mind. You don't double them. When you successfully play one of them, your opponent discards one or removes 2 cards in your ringside pile. Elliot just got home. He's gonna come check us in and say hi. Sure, come on down. We just finished the Allegiance phase, so we can edit this part out. Moving on to the venue phase, I picked out 2 venues that I've seen increase in popularity recently. Dubuque, Iowa. It's a new card from the last virtual set. Should we go through all the text? It does so many great things. But basically, whenever you successfully play a 40 or greater maneuver, you get to shuffle in a card from your ringside pile.
Once a turn.
Once a turn, and you can ace it to reverse any RMS card when you have 10 or greater fortitude, and it counts as a hybrid reversal. So it stops Atomic Lariat, Precision Haymaker, that kind of stuff late game.
The drawback it has is it ignores any recovery effects from other pre-match cards in play.
Yeah.
So you don't get it with like Handicap Match or Rochester, New York.
Or through all these years, WrestleMania, some of the bigger cards. But if you know you're going to be consistently playing 40 or greater maneuvers, it might make sense to run it. And then the other one, Madison Square Garden, it's kind of pairs with WrestleMania, really. Doesn't take up a slot. Your hand size is +1, another card to boost your hand size. When you ace WrestleMania, you remove WrestleMania from the game. And the drawback to that is that your opponent gets to keep 1 card in his hand when you shuffle your hand and Superset value back. But there's so many ways to overcome that. Like if you're running the Mean Gene and you can draw into who booked this match, you can make them discard 2, or you have a discard ability like Chris Jericho, you can make them discard right off the bat. So, yeah, those are probably the 2 most popular venues.
Feud, the big standout feud I find is Tech in a Bottle.
Huge in our area.
I mean, you're searching for like a chain heat volley, face heel, blindside precision, technical card, maneuver. You're putting it under Tech in a Bottle. And then when it's in play, you could put Tech in a Bottle in your ringside pile, and you're playing that card as if from hand. So big thing is you're searching for a quick snap body slam, 0-for-4 chain grapple. You're playing it with the new mid-match card Flawless Transition. It's a 0-for-0 chain. Acts like a panic. You're playing both. The opponent has to reverse both. So that's almost a guaranteed 4 fortitude because they have to discard 2 for each and then play a reversal to each. So that's 6 cards potentially from hand. But also you don't have to search for a card. Instead you put this card on top of one of their pre-match cards and it's blank until the end of their turn.
Yeah, I think the biggest drawback is that it's only for 1 turn. I don't think you could really do it for 2 or 3 turns because then you have to keep track somehow, and probably doing it for the whole game would just be ridiculous.
No, just add dice to the game.
Yeah.
You'd love that.
So yeah, I've been tinkering around with like what you could do with that, but I still just like searching for that 0-for-4 chain or that key blindside to start the game. Really, whatever you need, right?
Like this is great in characters that can protect moves. Big freaking machine comes to mind because you can search for like an 0-for-6. New Nexus. Even guys, I can't think of anything more offhand really, but it helps you get that 0 fortitude maneuver, and they can't do anything to this card. It's permanent RMS. They can't blank it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about drawing into your hand and drawing into nothing. And that's a big theme with the virtual pre-match is like, okay, it's helping me get that early fortitude.
Yeah.
And let's just skip ahead a bit. And then we're thinking about the name of the game is wrestling. No, wrestling is...
Marquee?
Marquee says wrestling, where it's like if you have 7 or less fortitude, your grapples and submissions can't be reversed by hybrids. Opening volley, where it's, if your fortitude rating is less than 10, he can't reverse your volley maneuvers from ring or remove cards to the volley trait.
Yeah.
And that's
So when you combo those with Tech in a Bottle,
yeah,
makes them easier to get fortitude.
Yeah, it's just, that's something I want to stress with virtual as well, where like the game has shifted from that red walling, controlling the early game, where it's like, okay, everyone's generally going to get that early fortitude. How do you play your mid game to late game?
Yeah.
How am I going to throw 5 trademark finishers at my opponent who's going to sustain them all down and overturn reversals to each?
Yeah.
But let's visit the kind of the 3 pretty impactful
Stipulations. Yeah. So if you're a tag team, handicap match got thrown back. Again, starting hand size +1. We're seeing a theme here. Your opponent's starting hand size is -1. Pre-match and mid-match are +2. And once during each of your turns, which probably 50% of players forget, when you reverse a maneuver from hand, you can put a random card from your ringside pile into the bottom of your arsenal. And then the drawback, you can't play champ is here, but has the same effect. Doesn't get hit by like For the Love of the... Actually, it does get hit by For the Love of the Game because it's still has tag titles in it. Never mind. But yeah, so it basically just replaces champ is here if you are a tag team. And if you're a tag team with lower superstar value, you don't have to worry about him playing a belt first. You can pull some strings to get in the match and make sure that gets in play.
And yeah, there are a lot of stables in the game, so I mean, if you're playing one of those that can play, again, a numbers game, you're guaranteed to get that. Because it's great in tag teams, but I mean, if you just want to play stables all day, here's my +2 pre-match, +2 mid-match, you can't do anything about.
Exactly. And then the other two, which I think have made a little bit more of an impact on meta, old school cage match and old school wrestling match. If you don't know what they do, these are the 2 cards that you probably need to learn in Raw Deal. In Virtual Raw Deal. Old school wrestling match, if any player's turn ends without playing a maneuver, he has to overturn 6 cards. So that's just the aggression rule. And
from Virtual.
Revolution.
From Revolution.
Yeah, and then like turns can't be skipped, etc., etc. So that's not... You can't really abuse it. Gets a little bit of a boost if you're back to basics in your ring area. Basically, it makes the game pick up the pace a bit, right? So games aren't lasting 12 turns when you're throwing big moves at each other all game, which is what the wrestling game is about. It's kind of annoying if your deck isn't built around that or doesn't have enough maneuvers to have to overturn 6. And it seems like you always lose a key card in those 6, right? You'll spin your divine when it's not your opponent's turn or something, and then suddenly it's in the ringside, and you're like, ah.
Well, and because of the stipulation card, it kind of shifted everything away from like those action-heavy decks, milling decks, those control, because first thing you need to do on your turn is play a maneuver.
Yeah.
Unless you can guarantee you're going to successfully play that action, or you're going to successfully activate that activated card effect. Otherwise, you're overturning 6. I've lost games because of my own old school wrestling match.
That's another drawback. Just like No Way Out throwback from the classic days. Like sometimes it does more damage than help, but.
And then old school cage match. So what this does is it eliminates effects that move cards from ringside. So whenever like a chain heat, stipulation, superstar specific, or unique card moves whenever a not printed. So if it's not any of these, moves cards from any ringside, the number of cards moved is reduced by 1. Yeah. So what this does is it doesn't allow you to use Steel Chain Shot to return itself, because this effect reduces that number by 1. So you're returning no Steel Chain Shots. Thrust Knee Lift, you can't put on the bottom of your arsenal because it's reduced by 1. Yeah. Kidney Punch is a big one as well, where you can't return it. So it gets rid of a lot of that, but it hurts cards that aren't as overpowered, like Iron Will, roll out of the ring, shoot headlock, don't hate the player, hate the game. Yeah. A lot of those recovery, I mean, even like Candace Internet Icon reduces it by 1. Puppies reduces it by 1. Yeah. This one I think is a little much.
Yeah.
Just because it hurts it doesn't hurt Ready to Fight, which is nice, because then you can shuffle a full 5 and then you can return 1 maneuver back. What I recommend for anyone who's just playing casually is don't incorporate these cards into your ones, yeah. Because then you could play just those action-heavy decks again. It's just, these are a little much.
Yeah.
I hope it gets toned back.
We don't see them too much in our casual play area. At FunCon, like the top 4 decks, 3 of them had old school wrestling match.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a pretty popular card to just be aware of them. If you're new to Virtual, those are the 2 cards you need to be aware of. Old school wrestling match, old school cage match.
You want to go quickly over some events, objects.
Sure, yeah.
A big one here, a big one in the meta is backed by SmackDown General Manager Vicky Guerrero. It's a whole list of people. I can't pack it, but what it does is it protects your non-superstar specific maneuvers that aren't 0 fortitude but printed SmackDown. So what it does is it generates a reversal effect. They can't be reversed by non-damage 0 reversals, but or overshot, except manager interferes can reverse it. So what it is like you're running clotheslines at 12 for 13. Face stretch if you're playing it at 8 fortitude for the 8 damage. There's key lock is like +3 damage when played by a SmackDown or played by a tag team. So what this does is it generates a reversal restriction to it, so you're not. So really
it's a play restriction. Not a
play restriction. Oh yeah,
it's a big difference.
pretty much they can a revolution of the mind.
Yeah.
Your stuff, your big hybrid reversals. This is a big kind of
even
play
smaller
choice.
cards like quick snap, quick follow through. Like they can't play elbow to the face to it, even though it's only a 40 high risk.
Yeah. But like or if you play that in Eddie Guerrero, they can't sidewalk slam it.
Well, you can't play back by Vicky and Eddie Guerrero.
On to the next card.
So 2 popular ones, and they're popular because they do not take up slots in your ring area, is Ruthless Aggression and Playing by the Rules Throwback. Pretty well if I'm building my deck and I'm at 10 pre-match and I don't know what else to put, I slip those in. Again, they don't take up slots. Playing by the Rules makes your face reversals -5 fortitude and your opponent's heal and run-in reversals +5. And if he has a no-show, he has to randomly shuffle 1 into his arsenal. Ruthless Aggression says if your opponent's a legend, which we saw a lot of at FunCon, starting hand size is +2. And if he ends his turn with an effect that does not come from a reversal card, like Rules Are Meant to Be Broken, Stacking, managed by Jimmy Hart.
Oh, WrestleMania. Through all these years.
You may put this card in your ring pile and then continue your turn. I'm really surprised we didn't see a lot of those at FunCon, but you never know how many legends were going to be there. Was there another legend? There is another legend card. Segway. Heenan family is a faction. It has a bunch of logos on it. You're a member of the Heenan family. The biggest thing, your unique reversals are not affected by your opponent's card effects. So if you are a legend and you're running this card, suddenly your step aside, escape move, and break the hole, which are unique, can now no longer be plunged.
Well, that's if you're running the legendary defense backstage area card.
So basically, I think in like Devil's Favorite Demon, I counted as close to 20 unique reversals. So cards that can't be plunged, cards that can't be modified in any way. So it's a big boost to like.
It's modified by your opponent.
Yeah.
So they don't have RMS, and then any effects you control as a player can still modify the cards, which is way better than RMS.
Yeah. Yeah. So. It's a good card. Legends love it. Another one that we see a lot in every deck, Making Your Escape. It's another card right up there with, I think, the old school wrestling match and old school cage match that you should be familiar with in Virtual because it will save your behind. All players, first of all, in Hell in a Cell are blank until the start of their first turn. When Redemption is in your ring, it is blank. Once during each of your turns, you may overturn 4 or remove a pre-match card from your ring from the game, and then you're not affected by Hell in a Cell. There is no escape. First of all, until the start of your next turn, and he is not considered to have played a volley card on his last turn, and the effect cannot be reversed. So, really cool that it gets you out of a hard spot against some of these cards that make cards harder to reverse or stop you from doing things like playing volley maneuvers so you can play in action or something from ringside on your turn. I've liked a few of the combos that people have been running with this. where your lower superstar value, you can play Distractingly Delicious, and then on your turn you can remove it from the game using this effect, and you can play cards on the first turn, so you're essentially stealing their turn. So that's when you were saying people aren't running Showtime because there's better ways to do it.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways to do it, as long as you're both males. You can play Distractingly Delicious and get this. If you need cards in your ringside pile, you can overturn 4, because you just can, right? They don't have to have any of those cards in your ring area. They don't have to have played a volley. It's considered to have not, or you're not affected by those. So, you can overturn 4, and then suddenly you have a ringside pile that, if there are cards like that you're trying to get into your ringside, that you can pick up because of their effects. Right? So, yeah, I like it. Neat card. Permanent RMS, can't be blank, can't really be modified.
It's one of those ones where you don't need it for the effects, but it's like, how can you manipulate your deck?
Yeah.
Like, what's the theme behind it?
Yeah, and it's all about like using all the resources that are available to you, right?
So you can be using all the resources available. Drawing a blank is a fun little card.
Yeah.
So what it does is during your turn we have equal or lower fortitude, and you play a maneuver with blank text. So first thing that comes to mind for me is Chair Shot. Body Lock's a great chain, but I love seeing like the maneuvers you never see packed anymore, like sit out power bombs at 3 for 6.
Body Slam, like the back to basic move line.
Yeah, so a lot of these older maneuvers that don't see play anymore. I had to actually trade for a whole bunch of these. Yeah. I was just using proxies. So when you have equal or lower fortitude and you play one, it cannot be reversed by non-unique reversals from hand or ringside pile. So it's like, yeah, the maneuvers aren't great, but they're going to pack a bit of a wallop. Also, if you have a blank ability, so some superstars have blank abilities, you can choose to either draw a card if you have less than 10 in hand, or put a card from ringside on the bottom of Arsenal.
I think I prefer that effect almost to the first one, right? Because with the first effect, they're probably going to restrict your use. They'll probably have at least one unique reversal, so it's going to take a few turns to kind of get the momentum going on that. I know a lot of people pair that with There's No Escape.
Yeah.
To give them their maneuvers a little bit of a boost, add some stun value, so when they do hit, they're extra painful. There was something else I was going to say about this card. It's only from hand or ringside, right? So you can play non-unique reversals from Backlash. So we had a debate about whether to pack their Going Nowhere Fast. It was funny, we were like, yeah, the card's kind of done, and then me and my buddy played a game, and we both played Drawing a Blank, and we both used Going Nowhere Fast. So we're like, okay, maybe it still has some validity as being in a deck. Yeah, but that's a fun little card. Again, ways to help you get on board when you're behind, making your cards a little harder to reverse. So, I like it.
Yeah, sorry. That one. Sure. That one's that's a really important virtual card.
This is my favorite. Was my favorite. I've kind of reined my horns back on it a bit. One of the big boys. When packing this card, you cannot pack pre-match cards with McMahon in the title. Overturn 6, and at the end of the pre-match phase, put one non-unique card from your ringside pile in your hand. So it's like giving them high fives, basically. Plus, when this card's in your ring, your opponent's non-unique, non-specific reversals deal no more than 1 damage. And it has a little bit of a bonus for WCW Superstars. But that card is huge when you look at cards like Spinebuster for 6 damage, and Power Slam for 10 damage, and Elbows and Sidewalk Slams for 2 and 3 damage. And when you can reduce that all to 1, it's like, so, like, I think this card gave a huge boost to volley decks. I know opening volley makes them not do damage to the non-multi ones, but this kind of protects the multi ones. So
when your opponent plays Frankie Takes Hollywood, giving all his reversals RMS, this card's kind of dead in the water. Yeah,
so have a card that gets around Frankie, right?
Search for Rest Hold with Tech in a Bottle.
Yeah, right, and play it with that False Transition right to start right out of the gate, right, if that's a big concern of yours. And for high risk decks, like Overshot Your Mark, you can reduce it to 1 damage. So, yeah, it was a big favorite of mine. It's again one of those things where a bunch of people run it, and then you see less and less pain reversals, and then you don't have to run it for a while. And then the pain reversals come back, and it's kind of like a swing, and I find that with a lot of these cards, right? Like, it's a swing.
And with Virtual as well, as they do a lot of revisions every year. Kind of, if stuff's a little overpowered or someone found some loopholes with some superstars, they tone it back. That has happened with... I can't remember the previous card. Anyways, it's happened with this card. Interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund. It's a list of people that can't pack it. Oh, this is the old one in my hand. Speaking of revisions, I was going to use it too. Professionally printed. MakePlayingCards.com.
I think that's the old one.
It's the old one. Because it has the draw, discard 3.
Oh, it's not the FunCon promo one?
No, this wasn't a FunCon promo. Just the actions were.
Oh.
I'm new to this game. Game.
Really?
Anyways, what it does is turn up the heat, turn the tide. Good things sometimes happen. Who booked this match? Well-deserved push.
I wasn't listening to your list, but offer handshake, turn the
Offer
tide.
handshake. Yes, that was the other one. What it is they become unique. Your opponent cannot respond to it, and they cannot be reversed. So, cannot be respond to.
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Not cannot be reversed. Oh yeah, this cannot be reversed. I thought it was just cannot be
No,
responded
cannot be
to.
responded to.
Yeah.
So they can't restrict use of this area, getting rid of its effects. So cards like Offer Handshake. Who booked this match?
Turn the tide.
No, not Turn the Tide. Oh my, I'm so bad at this game.
Well-deserved push.
Well-deserved push. Who booked this match? Offer Handshake. Those are great because they're going through. You're instantly getting that text.
Yeah.
Turn up the heat, turn the tide. It's great. However, those cards you play after it, they can still respond to.
Yes.
They can still sidewalk slam. They can restricted use.
Yeah.
So it's really situational. You want to draw out those cards. What's great with those two cards is there's only one restricted use of this area.
Yeah.
So you're going to have one that is irreversible, but then you have to worry about those irreversible reversals. And that's the thing about Virtual too, where
sometimes making something irreversible makes it easier to reverse.
Yes. Which is, I guess it was kind of the case in Classic, because Don't Be a Douchebag that we covered last show reverses a non-unique maneuver that has a reversal restriction, which is generated through that. It seemed with Carlito Says that's not cool.
So if you're playing these, don't turn up the heats, turn the tides. Try to play a unique after them, because then you're eliminating Carlito, you're eliminating Douchebag. If you can throw a unique multi, like a Whirlwind Kick, that's 5 damage.
Exactly.
Overhand Chair Shot, 5 damage. Suddenly, they almost have to play the restricted so that they can play normal reversals to it, because most don't have 2 sidewalk slams or 2 backhands, like a backhand slap and one thing to say or something. So if you can find that unique 5D for your either turn the tide or turn up the heat. I think it did water down turn the tide.
You're only getting one.
I'm saving my restricted for a turn the tide as soon as I see that, because Mean Gene also remove the if you're lower in fortitude text on turn the tide, so you can just play it when you're winning.
Turn the tide, trademark finisher.
Yeah. It's like, great. The Mean Gene card in the revision also lost its draw 3, discard 3, which I didn't notice until I actually played it and went to do it, and I was like, oh wait, that's not there anymore, which kind of stinks, because to see 3 additional cards never hurts. There's been a lot of debate whether it watered it down too much, but when you get hit with a unrespondable Offer Handshake or a Who Booked This Match, you're like, ooh, that's really good. So I'm glad they're unique.
And Who Booked This Match is also in That's Value, which is a classic card.
Yeah.
So you could search for your 1 and you could play that first turn, either to make them discard 2 cards or you're drawing your 2 cards.
Or whenever you need it, right? Like, oh, you only have 1 or 2 or 3 cards in your hand, pitch 2, now you can't stop my chain cards.
After WrestleMania,
yeah.
Who Booked This Match? Okay, I'll draw 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge. Like, especially if you're the WrestleMania player, it's like my first turn. After this, I have 3 cards in hand to your none.
Yeah.
Let's play some Raw Deal.
Yeah, it's good.
You want to quickly visit, kind of just shoot on some last ones?
Sure. Flanked by Arena Security. Great card if you're worried about your opponent looking at your hand, making you overturn cards, or reducing your hand size. I think that, or moving cards from your hand or Backlash deck. This card really saved me at FunCon. I played a Triple H deck that made my hand size like -6, and I just played this, and he couldn't reduce my hand size, so I got to draw my whole hand, and that was huge. There's a drawback if you have more than 5. Okay, after all pre-match plays, put random cards from your hand on the bottom of the number equal to twice the number of pre-match slots you have filled above 5. So that's only counts pre-match slots. So cards like Playing by the Rules, Throwback, Ruthless Aggression, they don't take up slots, which is great. So you can actually still have 7 pre-match cards in play and not have to face the drawback of that card.
I just want to go over. I'm just going to like bullet point bunch. Diva Bikini Contest is a blank text, but it gives you 2 stun value, which is great if you want to do like backslides inside cradles. Stun value based decks.
Which I'm a big fan of.
Cheat to Win is one that was fun, where -1 hand size, you ace it to kind of reverse your opponent's reversal to your non-chain cheater action.
Yeah. I find you have to pair that with a superstar specific cheater card.
I love it in Rattlesnake.
Yeah, because I think there are too many, or there aren't enough cheater actions that would really go with.
Premier WWF Superstar, they threw it back. They list all the Premier Superstars and their original remakes, and all their specifics don't take up a pre-match slot, and they can't play Break You. That's the thing with virtual pre-matches. You're not, if you want to work around, I'm going to break you, you're pretty much not going to be hit by it. And because of the backstage area, it's all about the game. There's no calling you out. There are a lot of those pre-match disruptions not there, so you're generally going to be guaranteed.
So, yeah, pre-match really sets the tone for the game. It's almost half the game. So if it does look overwhelming, that's kind of because it is, right? Like, this is really setting the pace for the game. Basically, virtual has turned it into allowing you to do what you want to do versus allowing your opponent to do what they want to do, and kind of see who does it better. And I kind of like that. You don't have to worry about every disrupting card in the game, and if you are, there are cards like Flanked by Arena Security that kind of slow those things down a bit. So.
And there's a title belt that also protects against Break You that we'll visit. I just have one more card I want to talk about. High Flying Style is like a total thematic card. It has a list of guys who could pack it who are pretty much your high flyers, cruiserweight style wrestlers, and then they started making wrestlers. It says you may pack High Flying Style on it. What it does is it makes your maneuvers with Rana in the title a high risk, so Hurricane Rana, the 9 for 10 throwback. Non-unique reversals don't do damage to your high risk maneuvers. You're from the top rope, from the middle turnbuckle, cannot be reversed. And also in the backstage area card, there was a cruiserweight style action that makes your Japanese arm drags, your non-throwback Japanese arm drags, 0 fortitude, so they're 0 for 4s that can search for themselves. If you have 3 or less fortitude, they can only be, it's played as if it's unique.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch to it, and so it adds a lot of thematic stuff. A lot of WWF classic cards we're looking at. There are a lot of managers. There's managed by Sonny, managed by
Mr. Fuji,
managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. There's a classy Freddie Blassie card, because Virtual has a lot of those old WWF guys like IRS, Razor Ramon, $1 Million Man's already in it. Rockers are in the game. Yeah. So you could, if you're like the kind of early 90s, 80s era fan, you could build decks that are pretty much all themed around it. And then you want to visit that.
Well, I just pulled out one random title belt just because tournament kits provided quite a few belts. I think there's at least a dozen or so virtual titles.
No, these aren't available for download yet. I hope they become available to the masses.
They have been out for quite some time, so I can see that happening soon.
Now, the text is available on Team Canada online if you go to the virtual set lists, but the images aren't available for these.
Yeah, so basically I just brought one out to say, hey, there's a bunch of title belts that do cool things, so go check them out.
And same with some guest ringside announcers. They added a handful of those. I think they added 12 title belts, throwing back a lot of old ones. They made like a Raw US title and a SmackDown Intercontinental title, new tag team titles. So like the Raw and SmackDown tag titles, you can play together, like the unified tag champions.
Yeah, and the penny belts, the penny tag belts.
But a lot of these belts have effects. The one you had is probably one of my favorite ones, just for the thematic behind it.
Yeah, and each one does have a theme to it, right? So yeah, go check them out on TCO and give them a look, and that's pretty well the pre-match phase. We're going to do a card compare, but we'll save that for the next show because it was a mid-match that I picked out. And really, we just kind of card compared every pre-match.
I don't know how long this was, but I still think it was shorter than the pre-match phase. This whole discussion.
Yeah. There were a few times where we were trying to run through what cards to do, but if you missed any of that, they're all available on TCO, so you can go back and look at them and see the text.
And if you're listening to this and shaking your head that we missed something, share it on our social media.
Yeah.
Make a reply to our Twitter or Facebook post, or on if you're YouTube, bring it up in the comments if we missed something or made a mistake, because we're all about doing it right.
And there are a few that, like, I've printed 4 or 5 copies, but they're all in decks right now, right? Like, you had to dig out your Mean Jeet and Tech in a Bottle because mine are all in decks, so they weren't in my stack here. So I know there were 2 or 3 that we missed that are pretty popular. One thing I wanted to say was thanks for everyone for sharing your throwback stories on our Facebook page. That was pretty fun. People sharing some old memories. Instead of doing a Throwback Thursday card comparison, we just asked to share your stories and got some good feedback on that. Old memories. Everyone loves old memories.
So let's move on to part 2 of the interview with Drew. A lot of this is a focus on Gen Con. He's been a long time Worlds tournament organizer. Unfortunately, he won't be here. He won't be at Gen Con this coming weekend, but he shares some of his experiences, and we talk a bit about some other things as well. So on to that.
Okay, well, let's move along from the development and deck playing and your involvement in organizing the virtual World Championship events. Sure. So you've been doing all of the virtual World Champions since virtual came out. Since Comic Images finished, you've been involved with organizing. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. I think about the first one that I went to, I think was 2010. So the first one I wasn't, that was the first time I ever been to Gen Con. And I just went because, Justin Jokerfish had won the year before, a really close friend of mine as well. And I wanted to go try it as well. And that was, Commissioner D2 was still running it at that point. And he was looking at someone to, I guess, pass the torch on to basically keep running it. Because he didn't think he'd keep running anymore. I think he looked at me and said, hey, you're not going to be a jerk about this. You're going to try to keep it, right down the middle, do the Bill Alfonso thing. And I've tried to do that as much as possible and try to keep it to the point where it's still something to be fought over. It's still something to be, held up in high regard. The World Championship is still the World Championships in a game that a lot of people have spent 10,000 hours. It's important to a lot of people, and it should be held in high regard. And that's basically all I've tried to do. I think anyone who's met me has realized that at the World Championships have realized he's kind of a jerk in terms of like getting everything done, but it's not that I'm not fair, it's just that this is something important. But when people ask for deck, I ask for deck lists because it's a World Championship. And I got a lot of flack for that, but I never wavered from that because that's what we've been doing before. And that's kind of where it started. I think Dustin just realized that I wouldn't take crap from anyone and just realized that I would try to keep it in as high regard as we both thought it deserved to be. And that's where I've just been doing it for the last couple of years. Like, I think last so many years. I can't even call anymore. 2010 to 2016, 17? Last 5-7 years. Wow. It's been a while.
It's crazy to realize how long this game's been around for, too.
Yeah. Still great, though.
So did you have any experience tournament organizing prior to this, or was this kind of you're jumping in the deep end right away?
It was kind of one of those things where that's just my personality. I'm on all or nothing. It's just dive right in. If one is good, 50 is better. So I'm just one of those all or nothing kind of people. Part of the addictive personality and part of, hey, we're going to do this right, and I'm not going to compromise on pretty much anything. Whether it be deck lists, whether it be, World Championships, everything else, doesn't matter. It's all fun. The World Championships is for 3 hours. We're going to treat this as a World Championship and treat it with as much seriousness and respect as we can. And that was the impetus of that.
And have there been many difficulties? Because virtual is a whole different ball game compared to the classic games with a lot of different wording on cards, reversal restrictions versus player restrictions. Has there been any instances in the middle event where someone disagrees with the ruling, or something was a real like if someone wasn't comprehending something, especially at such a large event like this.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot, and there are sometimes even as judges, I'm in the middle of a match, and I get called. I'm like, okay, sure, and I don't know the answer, but most of the time, between 2 or 3 judges, we usually do, and if not, it was really nice to have Nate and Creed on speed dial for the World Championship to say, hey, we have this really weird situation, and they can help us out usually. So it's never been like we're on the branch on the way out there, on our own. We usually have some help, but in the end, we usually have to make one call every 2 years. But in the end, it's nice that we can usually dissolve all disputes, and most people just nod and say, yeah, that makes sense, and move on. There's never been like, I don't agree with that, get someone on the phone. It's usually like, wow, I don't even know the answer to this. This is a very interesting, because it's usually virtual. It's usually some weird wording on like some weird card that we hadn't seen before, a character we hadn't used. So, but it happens, and it's part of the world. It's just a lot of fun anyway.
And then, so I guess everyone who participates is generally in good spirits about it. With the 3 different formats, you have Virtual Classic, Revolution, All Access. Do you ever find people are more lenient towards wanting to play one format over the others, or if I believe it's top 4 where it comes down to a tiebreaker, they have to play a certain deck? Have you found that there's some animosity towards these ideas? Or not necessarily animosity, but like negative feedback.
I can guarantee you that almost many of the people that have been going for the last 5 to 6 years, a lot of them still have this stigma. A lot of it is spearheaded by a former world champion that they believe that Revolution is a coin flip, and it's really not. But a lot of people just haven't put the time in on Revolution. Revolution has been seen probably very unfairly that it's just a coin flip, or it's just that it's not as diverse as the other. Well, it definitely has less cards, but there's still a lot going on in Revolution. Finally, we've decided, at least the design team decided to take changes to like start lowering the strength of like certain of the meta characters of Revolution, because a lot of them hadn't changed in a long time. Ric Flair being one of them, Stryker being another. Dolph was pretty much probably too good when we released, but they needed a little help at the time. But definitely Revolution was the one that has been getting a lot of flack, at least at the beginning. And now a lot of people have just realized, hey, it's just a format. Complaining isn't going to get it done. And then they just start working on it and making like The Rock is interesting, like Andre is interesting. Everyone is interesting in Revolution now. So at least there's a lot more options than me just going mindlessly up, here's Flair, here we go. And now there's a lot more options that you could actually try.
Yeah, our play group is starting to get into Revolution again. We were into it when it first came out and kind of ignored it for the last, I guess, 10 years now. And now with, lives are getting in the way, you need a faster way to play the game, but you still want to play the game, and Revolution's the way to go about it, because it's a way shorter pre-match phase, smaller Backlash decks, and the Classic is still an aggressive game. I think Revolution offers a different style of aggressiveness that the Classic doesn't necessarily have.
I agree. Whether it has to do with the lowered pre-match, the aggression rule, Revolution it harkens back to original Raw Deal when there really wasn't much in terms of like control decks. It was all aggro, 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 and that's what a wrestling match should be. I mean, not to say that Trish decks don't have their place, but in Revolution, it just brings you back to an earlier time where I just hit you with my beat stick, you hit me with yours, and then we'll see what develops and see who wins in a real wrestling match. And there's something to be said about like a game that doesn't take like a 45-minute chess match. Sometimes you just need like a 10-minute checkers game, and then you go, all right, that satiates what I needed. I can just play the checkers game 5 more times in the span I would play one chess game, which is what my virtual rev to virtual classic at this point, just because navigating a pre-match can take like 10 minutes in the real world, and when you have a 45-minute time limit, that's a lot of time you've just associated to a pre-match at 30 minutes to a game, whereas when we do the 45-minute time limit for virtual rev, we don't need it most of the time. Usually one game may have gone to the distance, but the rest are all done in 15, 20 minutes, and everyone's just chatting afterward about how the game went, and sometimes there was a scoop, and sometimes it wasn't, but that's just ref, and that's just how it works.
And what are your thoughts on All Access? Since we've been playing virtual, we haven't visited it because it's even more overwhelming than what either formats offer. So how's that been for you in constructing decks for Worlds and winning 2 events, including that format?
All Access is the bastard, in my personal opinion. Don't quote me on this. It's the bastard child of two, of two things that shouldn't have been meshed together. I know Baron said that they should be meshed together, but that was all just window dressing. I personally think they probably should never have been meshed together. It was probably revolutionizing a new jumping point in, and trying to mush them together just doesn't work right. If you know what I mean, It just wasn't meant to be that way. Keep Virtual Classic, Virtual Rev, and then NXT would have been my option to make if you wanted 3 formats for Worlds. I think that's way better than Virtual Access. The problem is, though, people on the East Coast love Virtual Access, so that's not fair to them to say, hey, your format is garbage, let's just remove it from Worlds, when that's what back in 2010, 2011, that's all the East Coast played, whereas the West Coast, all they played was Virtual Classic and Virtual Rev.
Okay.
And to basically accommodate everybody, that's kind of the reason why all right, well, let's just keep them all in. Because one-sided the East Coast hated Virtual Rev, and the West Coast never played Virtual Access ever. So that was part of the reason why we're like, well, we can't be mean, and we can't be like, take one away from the other, from either person. So let's just throw all 3 in, and it's perfect. We'll just live with it. When building it, you just have to be able to deal with as many things as you can. That's why Bash is so prevalent. That's why at the time, Bash with Divas was so prevalent, because you could deal with script issues and Bash, which is so amazingly good.
Mm-hmm.
Which they've since changed at the time for good reason.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't be able to deal with all those, be able to deal with all those questions in that manner that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, All Access, can you deal with first turn scoops? Can you deal with, Blue Wave? Can you deal with pretty much, if you just go through the checklist, and if you can't, you just throw it against the board and try again for Worlds. Because Virtual Access, that's what you're expecting at Worlds. You're expecting the best of the best, and you're expecting to lose in like 2 minutes, or can you deal with that? And can you get your strategy online faster than they can? I have no other explanations other than to say building for Virtual Access is the biggest headache in the world for Worlds, but it's part of what makes you enjoy the game and enjoy, the theory crafting and talking with Mitch and talking with Jokerfish and talking with Steve Resk for hours. I'm like, how are you going to what's your Virtual Access? Please don't tell me. How do you deal with it?
Well, going forward, if there's enough of a demand to switch out the All Access format for NXT or another format that could come up, do you think that's an option that could be looked at, conversed with the people involved, all the people involved with these events, and making Worlds happen? Did you see that being a change down the road?
There was some traction on getting that moving last year. It's just it didn't have an overwhelming support, and I don't know if it ever will get the overwhelming support.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, I think NXT deserves some chance to be in the sun to at least give a shot, because it's just a different format with cards that already exist, like a limited version of Virtual Classic, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, though, a lot of the meta hasn't been defined yet, because not a lot of people played as much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see where that goes. I'd be excited to see it. The problem is, though, I don't know how we would implement 4 if we were to lose one. I'm not saying that we'd have to eliminate one, or I guess this would be Virtual Access. In theory, we'd be eliminating. But at the same time, I don't see a reason why Virtual NXT can't have NXT just can't have a spot in the sun eventually.
Well, because Afterburn was a secondary format in the Comic Images days, which was well received because it eliminated a lot of those older, real game-shifting cards, and it changed the game.
Yeah, and a lot of what you see in NXT, at least the meta has been pre-match disruption. Anyone who can increase their pre-match very easily, and they've removed some of the things that is a little too good with a limited Backlash deck. But there's a lot of things that still haven't really been fully fleshed out, just because not everyone has spent that much time delving into a format that we're not going to play at Worlds. Mm-hmm. But I don't see eventually I'd like to see what the top deck thinkers and theory crafters come up with in this format, because I think it can be something. But then again, virtual access is the same idea. It's just spending time and getting in there, and eventually realizing Bash stops everything. So maybe they'll come up with something like that for NXT.
And we'll close up. You just talked about deck crafters in theory. With your limited time with the game, what superstars have caught your interest?
Melina was. I'll just go back to that just because it was one of those. I've always been drawn to divas just because I don't know. I like if I'm playing a superstar, I'm looking down. I'd rather look at a really nice looking female than a buff, guy with like really strong pecs. Not that there's anything wrong with guys who look at strong pecs, but to each their own. Whatever floats your boat. And I'd rather just look at a really hot female and go, all right, let's have this really strong hot female just kick the crap out of this guy. That's really interesting to me. I mean, I always like Chun-Li with a really strong steel leg, so let's make this work. So I've always been that. And when you go with divas, you eventually start thinking about discard decks, and Melina was just seemed to be the queen of discard, and at the time, no one had really made it work, and I couldn't see why. But that was just because I think there was a time no one really played divas, or they didn't think divas were very strong. When you play like Christy and realize she can start the game with 10 fortitude, back when she could, you realize that's really, really, really good. Same thing with Melina when you realize that you can go on this spree of playing almost 10 diva cards off the top of your deck and not use your hand at all. That's just really amazing. That's just one of the things I think, at least if you were to say, hey, what were decks Drew were mainly known for, it's probably going to be divas decks, and pretty much Melina was the reason why. Now, the Backstage Shenanigans card where you can overturn you instead of discard for the divas bet. Because when you play 7 divas cards in a row in a turn, that'll cause people to raise an eyebrow, as it were.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Drew, for taking the time to talk about some Raw Deal.
Anytime.
Gen Con's coming up in a few weeks, so it's August 2nd to 5th. Oh, you won't be there. A wide variety of Raw Deal players will be. And anyone who's listening to this, make sure to at least check out some of the side events during the weekend as well. Drew, I'll talk to you another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we're back from that interview. Thanks, Drew. Always good insight. I know you sent me his interview a few weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I like this. Comments, again, different player perspectives.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that, and you really get to see that on Discord. Different players and their personalities. For a game where we're all over North America and the world, we're getting to know each other, which is kind of cool. That's a cool thing about technology. Allows us to do that. So before we wrap up, you wanted to talk about Supershow, because they're going to be active at Gen Con.
Yeah, so it's a game developed by Steve Resk. I know him best for that Hard Being This Original Undertaker deck he put together back in the day.
After me. No, just kidding.
It's called SRG Supershow. It's a character-based card game, so I mean you're building a deck based around a wrestler. A lot of original wrestlers in it, but there are a lot of independents, like Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Drew Gulak's in it. Johnny Gargano was in it beforehand, AJ Styles, and what it is it's kind of like it's a wrestling match with no pre-match phase, so it's a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But you're not getting turn after turn, so the first person rolls for their turn, and then after that turn's over, you're rolling again to see who goes next. So it's the randomization of that, and the theme and the objective is to score a pinfall after playing a finish. So you can kick out after a finish. And then adds to a crowd meter, and it's a difficulty modifier to each one. You haven't had a chance to play it. I've played it a bunch with my girlfriend, and she enjoyed it. It's a quick, fun game.
There's dice, right?
The dice is only for randomization of turn, and whether or not your finish is successful.
Yeah. So mine would never, ever, ever be successful.
But your characters, they all have stats.
Yeah.
It's like technical, submission, and they're numbered from, I believe, 5 through 10, 6 through 10. So, but everyone has the same numbers, they're just in different spots. And each character has an ability, and what I really like about it is every card in your deck is numbered 1 through 60. So if you want to put in a new card, you have to make sure you're replacing a card of the same number.
Oh, okay.
So say there's a punch is number 1, well, I want to play this judo chop, but it has to be I have to replace it with that number 1, so I can't run 2 number 1 cards. So it's designed around that, which kind of adds to that strategy. Every character has 3 specifics, and they're numbered, I think, 58, 59, 60. I like that. I recently backed him on Kickstarter. Steve was kind enough to send me to starter decks to try out, and I've been overwhelmed and busy with everything else in life. I mean, as soon as we got them, we played it, and we packed, we moved.
Yeah.
I haven't really visited since, but I backed it on Kickstarter, the newest stuff, because I really enjoyed the game. It's a fun pick up and play game. It really makes multiplayer so much easier because just how the responses are with everything and the randomization of it. So if you're at Gen Con, go demo the game, try it out. If you're not going to Gen Con, visit the Discord. Team Canada Online has a whole section dedicated to it, and it's fun. I can't say more than it's fun. I mean, I haven't played on a competitive level, but our experience with the game hasn't been negative. Yeah, we both had a good time,
and it's kind of a nice alternative to a hour-and-a-half long virtual classic game. Yeah, which I find is the drawback, and like the appeal for me recently to get into Revolution again. Like me and a buddy played 5 games in an hour and a half, where usually you can fit 1, maybe 2 virtual classic games into an hour and a half. So that's why I've been drawn to virtual, just because it's so quick, fast paced. And Supershow sounds the same way. So.
Yeah, like I have Brian Cage. You've heard of him, right? He's an independent wrestler currently wrestling in Impact. He was like a Kickstarter bonus. Yeah. And Johnny Gargano I have as well. So building decks around familiar faces are more appealing to people. So on their website you can purchase kind of the superstar sets, which is like your character card and 3 specifics, and just add it to your starter deck. Yeah. Like if you want to play like out of a box board game, it's perfect for that because then you can just switch your character cards. I mean, the whole theme of the deck may not fit what the character is. If you want to play some just pick up and go games. I talked to Crasher, who was our first guest, Scott Mackey, and he plays with his daughters. And they love it because it's so quick response. There's no cost to cards. Yeah. You have to play like your base move. There are 3 tiers of things where there's your base, follow-up, finish. You can't play follow-up unless you have a base in play. You can't play your finish until you have a follow-up in play. But some cards act as hybrids, so there are stops. They're called reversals. Yeah. So if you like stop a base submission, but it's your follow-up maneuver, well now you can just play finish. So you can play finish turn 1. Yeah. It's neat. I'll sleeve it up. Yeah. We'll play.
Test it out. Yeah.
If you want quick games like Revolution, it's finding the time. Also the World's Finals are going to be streamed online. Oh yeah, was posted on Team Canada Online. So there is a thread, 2018 Worlds presented by Vela Cards. VelaCards.com for your single needs. There's no streaming information posted as of recording, but keep an eye on that. I'm going to try to watch it.
I'm going to try and watch it for sure, yeah.
I know we have Kempenfest this weekend, so I'm going to be down there for one of the days, but I'm going to make sure to watch it because this is kind of...
It'll be the Sunday, right? Or the Saturday?
Stay tuned to Team Canada Online. Well, I don't know.
It should be on the day that the World Champion event is, but I didn't look because I'm not going.
But Gen Con's strict for the recording policies. Yeah. You can't do any recording in the venue. Huh. That's why you never see anything from Worlds. There's one Worlds video on YouTube that's like the backstage area and part of the pre-match phase. But because they had to do it in a hotel lobby, because you can't record in it. So I'm like, man, like that's another deterrent for me to want to go down because I want to record all these games. But yeah, keep an eye on that. I'm sure as soon as we get the information, we'll share it everywhere where you can share stuff.
On all our social media.
Do you have anything else to say?
Nothing else to say. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
No, okay, I want to... I got one more thing. So I was at work, and I've been playing more Pokemon. Not at work, but like playing the old Game Boy Emerald one. Okay, yeah. So what if they made a Pokemon kind of wrestling game? Call it like Bookemon. Okay, so you go around, and you're like a manager of a stable, but your stable are your 6 wrestlers. Catch them in the wild, but they evolve. So it's like you start with like Hunter Hearst Helmsley Blue Blood, and then he evolves to the game Triple H, and then he evolves into like the NXT kind of Triple H. And you have to have your wrestlers battle other wrestlers, and you're just managers of stables, or like you're the booker. So like the Elite Four is like Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, Triple H.
Vince McMahon, yeah. Oh, wow.
And you don't catch him with Pokeballs, catch him with shark tanks, shark cages.
It'd probably be easy enough to do because people come from the Indies to NXT to WWE, so. Right, the older superstars you could use their evolving characters, but you could pick them off like that.
And you're walking around in the grass, and all of a sudden, a wild TJ Perkins.
Yeah. Oh, another cool thing was that a few people at local wrestling at Barrie Wrestling were on WWE last week. As part of No Way Jose's Conga line, so that was kind of cool to see some wrestlers that we go and watch on a monthly basis be on WWE TV.
Puff and Daniel Garcia, check them out. Daniel Garcia he's really good.
He's only 19, I think.
Yeah, and he wrestled Drew Gulak on 205 Live.
Yeah.
He's Danny Garcia.
Danny Garcia, yeah. Which was kind of cool that we just saw him like 2 weeks ago, and he was wrestling a WWE match. I don't know, it's kind of cool.
Imagine if a wild Puff appears.
Yeah. Check out Puff. Puff's pretty cool too. Yeah. All right.
I got
enough
nothing.
nonsense. Okay, you should have drank your coffee before coming over. That energy drink's finally kicking in.
Backlash Podcast, not sponsored by Rockstar Energy Drink.
All right, see you in 2 weeks for episode 23. After Gen Con, we'll have a new world champ for you right here on the Backlash Podcast. Maybe we'll try and interview him.